Well, good evening and welcome back to Call the Mayor Wichita. You can call, the number is 316-491-5787. You can go to kpts.org. We are also on Facebook, and the mayor is here to talk about quite a few things. I know we've got some jobs coming to the area again,
yes,
and that's great news for the community. We have some jobs coming into Newton as well at the airport there. But let's start off with Wichita and what this means. I guess 1,400
right.
is what's being added at Spirit.
Spirit's adding 1,400 jobs to the community. And
it's huge.
And you know, it's going to make a big impact on our community. As mentioned yesterday in the press conference, that's going to be about $75 to $80 million in salaries to the community in 1 year. And so that's significant wealth into the community. But more importantly, what that does is there's a multiplier effect. When Spirit adds 1,400 jobs, you can count on about a 3-to-1 multiplier. So you're going to see close to 4,000 jobs added into our community because of that.
Well, I liked it that we just showed some video of Wichita and downtown and Old Town and some of those areas, because those dollars, as well as the jobs, the dollars continue to turn over in the city and the area.
Absolutely. So it's good for retailers and restaurants and car dealers and home builders and all of those folks that will be impacted by those great paying jobs.
Now, before we get to the questions, and you can call, this is your show. Call the Mayor Wichita. The number is 316-491-5787. We welcome you on Facebook. You can click on kpts.org and you can find the Facebook page as well. We welcome your questions. I've got some loaded up here. I have a question that 2 people sent me to my email address, so we'll get to those. But let's talk about synergy here for a second while we're waiting on some of those calls to come in.
Sure.
Please call now. I talked to Andy out at WSU Tech, and he says, look, the phone's been ringing. We are going to train those workers who will go to work at Spirit, but we need workers to fill those jobs.
We do, and so there's a couple of new programs that we're going to initiate to help fill those jobs. One of them is offering scholarships to select neighborhoods that have high unemployment and high poverty. And so if you live in the north end of the city and Councilmember Johnson's district or Councilmember Clendenin's district on the south end, we're setting aside almost $500,000 for scholarships so that you can receive the kind of training that will give you the tools to go out and land one of these nearly 60,000 a year jobs.
And again, they are good paying jobs, the kind of jobs that you can raise a family, buy a house, buy a car on as well. In addition to that, are we going to see more expansions or anything on the horizon? Because I know that we've talked several times about what Spirit has done. They had an announcement a while back, more than a year ago now, where they're going to go ahead and add more jobs. They decided to add those jobs.
So they completed that. They fulfilled that promise of adding 1,000 jobs, and now they're adding these new 1,400 jobs in Wichita and this following year. And so it's they're expanding their footprint, they're increasing their production lines, they're getting into some new markets like defense contract work, and truly the sky's the limit. And we'll see what happens. Wouldn't surprise me if they do this again next year and announce additional growth, because it's really about the momentum and the growth and the footprint and everything that they're doing out there.
I know people talked for a long time when Boeing picked up and moved some of the things out of town and moved those, and then Spirit got busy. Spirit got more busy. They've continued to be aggressive, and now they're as busy as ever. In fact, they need more people to come out to work. It's good to see that they're expanding, because that's good for the community. Now, are other places in town going to benefit from this as well? I know subcontractors sometimes ask, hey, are we going to see more? Sometimes they do.
So it really benefits everyone in the community, because we're not talking about just numbers. These people are going to impact the community in a number of different ways. They're going to be leaders in their church and in their school, and become Cub Scout leaders and become coach of the Little League team. But more importantly, when you bring in talent, we all benefit. Every industry benefits, because people will move around a little bit. And so whether you're Coke or Cargill or Textron or the supply chain, all of that influx of talent will eventually benefit everyone.
Still have the lines open. 316-491-5787 is your number. You can find us on Facebook or kpts.org. We do take questions. We have several questions that I had printed out for you, and we had several that we could start with.
So
Baseball. It's come up
Yes.
again, and I know we're going to be getting a call on baseball because
Sure.
somebody told me they were going to call in. But we'll start off this one from Sunita K. McLean going to be shut down between Maple and Douglas when the new stadium is built. She says, I know plans were approved, but she didn't hear the outcome. So McLean, I know we've had a lot of questions about that because when you look at the renderings, that's just an artist rendering early on of what we could see.
Right.
And there's been a lot of talk about McLean. I know people like that, but where do we stand on that issue?
So we are planning on keeping McLean open. It will get redesigned a little bit so that we can incorporate the not only the baseball stadium, but the River Village that will grow up around it, and we want to incorporate the river into these plans and encourage people to come down. Of course, there'll be a pedestrian bridge, but the plan is to keep McLean open. We may close McLean on event days, and so if you come down for a baseball game, we may make that pedestrian traffic way, but when the game's not going on, we'll open McLean back up and people can travel with their vehicles across that gorgeous piece of roadway.
And again, a reminder of people, the timetable here. We've seen some movement. We have seen, the old Lawrence Dumont. It's just not there anymore. It's gone.
It's down. It's gone.
And what comes next for this? I know we've got some bids out there, and we've been talking to people to say, hey,
Right.
what is your plan, and what is the bidding process here now?
So last week we selected the the design build team that's going to design and build the new stadium, and they are already at work. We've had about 3 meetings already to discuss exactly what we want to see and amenities in that stadium. We have located where home plate's going to be, and then everything else gets built up around it. And they are planning on breaking ground come February.
Wow, that's
fast.
That's the fast track.
Right.
Okay, so I've had this question posed to me. I'll pose it to you. From Lawrence Dumont's, the old home plate there, how far away is the new home plate going to be from that location? Do you know? I don't know.
So I do, and with the plans that we've been working through fast and furiously, it looks like home plate's going to move towards Sycamore so that we can have some room. They want to put some pretty neat amenities that will surround the baseball field. One of the major ticket entrances into the field will be center field area, and then they will have some museums and gift shops and maybe even a brew pub that sits an outfield next to the renovated McLean and next to some other retail and restaurant opportunities there on the river, and so that's it's going to be a significant area that we're going to see a lot of new amenities. I tell people this, Craig, because it's hard to envision what this new stadium is going to look like.
Sure.
So the old stadium had what we call about 10 points of concession, where you could buy a hot dog or an ice cream bar. Surrounded around the stadium, there were about 10 points of concession. The new stadium's going to have 80.
Wow. Okay.
So it's just a
Wow.
a different scale, a different venue that we're not used to seeing.
Well, and for the baseball fans that have come out there, what is kind of the radius we're expecting of baseball fans to come in for this thing? I know we've talked about that before, and there were some questions asked about it, but it's not just Wichita Central.
No, it really isn't. And so they consider a population base of nearly 800,000 people that they will pull their fans from. But so it's going to be significant. But it's not just baseball. They want to have 200 events there a year. So we're planning on high school football games there in the fall. The team wants to hold some soccer games, so the stadium's going to be designed for multi-sports to be played there. And then they want to have some concerts and then some unique things like come to a movie night at the ballpark, because the screen that they put up for a AAA stadium is magnificent.
It's big enough for a movie, I assume.
So you can have movie night at the baseball stadium.
How big is the screen going to be? Do you know yet? Because
I haven't seen the specs on it, but it's very grand.
I'm thinking Kauffman Stadium right away. But
it's going to be very grand.
Okay. And two, what about games? How do I get my boys' school to play their high school game there? Do I call in and request it, or
For you, we'll make it happen. But listen, it's just going to be a great venue to take a family, and they want to make it affordable for families to go. And so they've talked about ticket pricing and concession stands, and they want a family of four to be able to get into the game, buy a hot dog and a drink, and bring the entire family for maybe $50.
Oh, I like the sound of that because
That's pretty economical when
Boys
you
can
include the
eat.
ticket
Yeah,
price.
no,
right.
for a hot
So
dog.
that's going to be a very family friendly venue.
Well, we'll get back to baseball in a minute, I'm sure. The lines are open still. You can call 316-491-5787. You can find us on Facebook if you're watching. But another question that I've had come to me has to do with traffic lights in Wichita. We don't necessarily have timing of lights like they do in some of the other cities or even major cities. Some of the major cities don't have it. But thoughts on getting the lights timed? The question was, are we going to get lights timed in Wichita? Is that a possibility?
So that's something we're working our way through right now, and we've got to put in the infrastructure first. And so the signals have to have something installed in them that we can coordinate the lights with, and we're in the process of putting in that smart technology now.
Now, I talked to, oh boy, I'm sorry, help me out here, Gary Jansen?
Gary Jansen is our city engineer.
I talked to him about a year ago about this, and I asked him, and he said the technology's out there, we just need to get it. And he said infrastructure needs to go in play too.
Right.
But he didn't say what that, I didn't ask him at the time what that meant,
Right.
because people were asking, could we have lights where if you get off the interstate, you could actually hit the traffic lights. Some of them you stop every light, some of them every other light you're going to stop. But Gary Jansen, when I was talking to him, brought up the point too. He said, look, in big cities, you can't have them all time. It doesn't work out that way. It's not an expressway. It doesn't quite.
No, it takes some coordination, but you want to be able to put in the technology that at different times of day, traffic patterns change. And so you want the signalization to change with the traffic patterns.
And two, with traffic coming around to the baseball stadium, will there be any changes with traffic downtown? I know the plan is to have people park downtown, maybe hop on the shuttles and make it to the baseball
stadium. So the
stadium.
queue line's very popular for people to gather and commute around the downtown area. It's free. It's went from 4,000 riders a year to over 120,000 riders.
Which is amazing. That's,
absolutely,
wow.
And so it's a great way for people to travel around the downtown area.
Well, we do have a question. The lines are open, by the way, 316-491-5787. You can call us and you get your question on the air. It's your show. Chad has a question. Now, Chad, you're on the air. You'd like to know about Amtrak. Go ahead. Chad, are you there?
We lost Chad.
No, we lost him. But they tell me Chad's question dealt with, are we getting, essentially, are we getting Amtrak in Wichita? Is that a possibility? I know we've got
Certainly
the Western,
is a possibility.
Western Flyer idea.
Right.
That's different
Right.
than the Southwest Chief.
So there's a gap in that Amtrak line. You can go from Chicago to Newton. You can go from Oklahoma City to San Antonio. And we need to close the gap from Oklahoma City to Newton, basically, so that eventually people can go from San Antonio all the way to Chicago. And so we're looking at closing that gap using old freight lines. But to use freight lines, they have to be upgraded for passenger service. And so we're looking for different opportunities, grants that can help us make those changes that need to be made. And still working through that process, but it looks promising.
Well, Daniel, you have a question. Call the mayor. You are on the air. You have a question about traffic control with the stadium. Go ahead, Daniel.
Did we lose Daniel?
I don't know, Daniel. You had a question about traffic control around the stadium. Are things, I'll ask you the question then, are things going to be vastly different, or will we have officers out there kind of shutting off McLean or diverting it to one lane?
Hello?
Oh,
Yeah.
hi. Daniel, are you there?
Did we connect?
Yes, I am.
Ask your question.
Hi, I have several I need answered.
Okay.
First, Mayor Longwell, the adjoining neighborhood around Lawrence Dumont, 80% of the people that live within a square mile of there cannot afford a ticket to Lawrence Dumont Stadium.
Okay.
Second is the handicap areas where there's sidewalks and on curbs. I recently had a friend that's a Vietnam veteran confined to a wheelchair that went down one of those, and there was a 4-inch rise in the street between the sidewalk and the curb. I called Public Utilities. They came out. A week later, they said they fixed it. It's exactly like it was. I watched this handicapped man flip backwards in his chair and bang his head. The fire department had to come. If you come in this neighborhood, west of Seneca and south of Maple, you will see these. And I see you doing all these wonderful things for the city of Wichita, but I don't see you doing anything to help the people in the adjoining neighborhoods. This is not going to help us. And I'd like you to address what you are doing to make this better for people that actually live here,
Okay.
not
Sure.
people
Yeah.
coming down here.
In the area as well.
Sure, absolutely. And I don't know, Daniel, if you heard that I was able to attend a meeting in Washington, D.C. Focused on affordable housing, because I mentioned this last month. We have almost 14,000 households in this city that are using up almost 50% of their monthly income just to put a roof over their head, and we've got to change that. And so we're looking for help from our partners in the federal government for a wide variety of resources that we can assist those folks that are spending too much of their income. But we also took proceeds from the Hyatt and we're fixing neighborhood streets. You know, the city years ago was mandated by the federal government to put in handicap accessible sidewalks, and so we're doing that throughout the city. And as you found out when you call, they are fairly responsive. So I would follow up on that and ask our city engineers what changes they did make to make that sidewalk area a little safer. But you know, I live in a neighborhood. I care about neighborhoods. We've got to figure out how to increase the quality of life for neighborhoods. We're going to do that in a wide variety of ways. We do it with some parks and green spaces. We're going to do it with some splash pads to help some neighborhoods that don't have any kind of activities for the youth, and we want to promote safe, fun activities that they can do that are very affordable. And I'll tell you, don't write off this stadium, because they want to make it very affordable for people to come to a game, because they want to build a brand, and so they understand it's expensive for a lot of people, and so they're going to do some things that are probably unique to baseball in this town. And I think you'll find ticket prices maybe even cheaper than what used to exist there in that stadium.
Oh, that is even cheaper. That's good to
Right,
know. I'll
right.
check back
Cheaper
with
is
you on
always
that.
good.
I'll check. I will double back with you and
Absolutely.
I'll hold you to that one.
Absolutely.
Hey, listen, I guess we had some other news. The Starlight has been saved.
So we saved the Starlight Drive-In, and we did some unique negotiations, and Councilmember Clendenin was thick in the middle of that.
Yes.
But you know, we talked to some folks about holding off on selling all of the you know, the materials at auction time, and they obliged us, and then we worked out negotiations to save the theater. And certainly another one of those fun, family-centered activities that are pretty affordable, to load the family up in a car and head to a drive-in theater, and we're glad that we could keep that for Wichita.
You know, I drove out there and I did a live shot, and I had forgotten how easy it is to get there. It's just literally right off 135 and then down the street.
Yeah.
We do have another question. The number here is 316-491-5787. You can call the mayor right now. Joel, you have a question or a comment about the Starlight. You are on. Go ahead with your question, Joel.
Yes, sir. Thank you. First and foremost, as a small business owner, I just wanted to tell the mayor that he's doing an awesome, wonderful job.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for saving the Starlight. That's basically what I wanted to say, to like the gentleman before. Kind of made a liar out of me, because I told a lot of people that there was no way, after he had it rezoned, and with him auctioning off everything, and then the projectors being gone, it was kind of like the dinosaur was already dead. But let me tell you what, you guys really stepped up on that whole thing, same with the commissioner, and I just wanted to give you guys kudos on that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So the patient may have died, but we brought out the defibrillators and we brought it back to life.
It was a unique situation,
Yeah,
and
very
I talked to
unique.
Councilman Clendenin about
Right.
this, and he said, look, there's a loan involved, but what is the payback, like 5 years? And it's not like a $2 million loan or anything.
Right.
It's for-
So and they have put up the collateral, so it's a
Okay.
totally collateralized loan, and so the city's not on the hook. We just had to act fast, and we were able to take funds that we targeted for neighborhoods from the sale of the Hyatt. So every council member received $1 million, and they invest it in their neighborhoods how the council member felt best would fix those neighborhoods, and so we are investing in those neighborhoods.
Okay. We do have another question from Chad this time. Chad, you are on. You have a question about Amtrak again.
Yeah, the question here is what role the city can play in extending the Heartland Flyer up from Oklahoma City to Wichita, and what that would mean for both the expansion and restoration of service for the entire region by Amtrak.
Well, the one significant role we play is continuing to lobby our federal partners and search for grant opportunities that we can utilize to help build out the infrastructure, because we can't do it just with local dollars. But one of the things that we put into play a couple of years ago is you can buy an Amtrak ticket and get on a Greyhound bus and head to Oklahoma City, and then switch over to the train in Oklahoma City and travel all the way down to San Antonio utilizing a Amtrak ticket. And so we're trying to track the increase in ridership by doing that, but we're continually lobbying, looking for grants, looking for more partners that will enable us to do it as effectively and low cost to our citizens as possible.
We have a Facebook question before we get to our next caller. You can call 316-491-5787. That's the number. But let's go to a question on Facebook that we have right now asking, why did the city choose a different contractor for the new water treatment facility? Now, if you don't know about the water treatment facility, it's essentially going to be a $500,000 facility, $500 million facility, because the old one is about 80 plus years old.
It's about 80 years old.
I know it's been worked on, but there's a lifespan that's coming to an end there. So this is something obviously that needs to be done. I don't think the city's ever done a project this big of this scope or cost, but
never.
That question, why about the contracting situation there?
So we haven't chosen a contractor yet. What we did was we decided we want to take a different path in the way that we're going to choose eventually a contractor. And so something that we've never done before and very few cities have done, it's a relatively new process. We said we want to do a design build contest. And what a design build contest will do is we narrow the teams down to two. We select two teams to build out 30% of the design. And then at 30% of the design, they have to give us a guaranteed maximum price to build that new facility. And so some have shared that by doing that different approach that we could save as much as $100 to $150 million on the cost of that new build out of a new water treatment plant. And competition is good. And so we're doing something different that will inspire competition amongst engineering firms. And we believe that that will be a method that will enable our citizens to save a lot of money.
And two, I believe Alan King, your Director of Public Works, has publicly said this hasn't been done really in Wichita before, but other places have done it. And he said it just drives the price down and keeps the quality up. That was his comments.
Absolutely. So we're looking forward to introducing kind of a new procedure to help save money.
Seems like a good idea to me.
Right.
Politicians saving money. There you have it.
Absolutely.
Or politicians, I should say. The lines are open, 316-491-5787. Doug, you have a question for the mayor. You are on the air about the stadium. Go ahead.
Sure. I think the stadium is going to be a wonderful showpiece for the city. I'm just hoping that at 6'5", I'll be able to fit in those seats. So will you have some say there, Mayor, on making this a comfortable and showpiece type
absolutely. That's a great question and a good point. Something that we've heard over and over again, don't make it as small as Intrust Bank Arena and some of the other venues that people struggle with, not enough leg room. And so we're designing and building the stadium with extra leg room. So it's going to be about 3 to 4 inches more leg room than any other venue, stadium, Interest Bank Arena in town, and so we want to make it very comfortable. If you're gonna come to a game and potentially sit through a 3-hour baseball game, we want you to be comfortable, and we're designing the seats and the leg room to accommodate people sitting in one place for a long time, but also making it convenient for people to get up. There's going to be an opportunity to walk all the way around the baseball stadium and never leave the site of the field of action, and so some new strategies so you can go
You could walk around the whole thing. It's like an enclosed.
You'll be able to walk around the entire stadium and never leave the action, including the concessions. So the concessions will be tucked behind home plate that will view out to the stadium, and so you'll never leave the action to go get a Coke and a hot dog.
I talked to a couple of people about this who actually are involved with AAA baseball, and they say sometimes people go for the family atmosphere, and then they say, oh, there's a game happening as well.
Absolutely.
Well, 316-491-5787 is the number. You can call us. We'll get to a caller in just a moment, but we had another question on Facebook, and that is in all caps. It is on my paper. Okay, it's not on here, but it was on my paper.
They may add it to it.
I think I could say it in all caps and ask it, when is the construction on Kellogg going to end? The answer is in multiple parts here.
Yeah, it is in phases. And so if you've traveled through West Kellogg at I-235,
yes,
and
I have.
It is open.
2 thumbs up for that one?
It is 2 thumbs up.
Ooh.
It is open, and we are excited. It's so much easier to commute through that area and so much safer. And so we're excited about that project. So for the most part, the project's complete. They still need to do some planting of some grass and fixing up some of those common areas that they obviously couldn't get to because of cold weather. But for commuters, the project's finished. And what a nice way to commute. The project on East Kellogg is ahead of schedule. There initially was a 5-year project. They ought to squeeze that down to potentially 3 or 4 years, depending on winter weather. And so we're really seeing Kellogg finish for the most part. I mean, as the city expands and our metro area continues to grow, there'll be some folks that want to continue to see improvements done out in Andover and Goddard.
Well, some people remember when we didn't have K96.
Right.
We continue to change and grow, and it takes you a while. If you're traveling from west to east on Kellogg, it takes you a while before you get far enough east that you hit construction again, but you do. We do have another caller who has a question about the new stadium as well. Jack, I believe. Sorry if I got your name wrong. You're on the show. What's your question for the mayor?
Well, I was curious about handicap parking. I get Interest Arena, it's pretty well full every time you go, and so it's hard. Is there going to be better, more handicap parking at the stadium?
Well, we have a formula that's handed down to us by the federal government that kind of dictates what the ratio of handicap parking needs to be, and I would imagine that we'll try and exceed that formula, but I haven't seen the number of spots in terms of handicap parking. But certainly we've addressed that issue in some of the meetings already in terms of folks that are handicapped and want to be able to watch a game, and how accessible are the different areas in the bowl itself, and certainly want to accommodate those that need that assistance.
316-491-5787. That is your number. You can catch us on kpts.org, also on Facebook. We welcome Facebook questions, even if they're in all caps as well, as
Absolutely.
I like to put it. We do have another question. Richard, you are on the show. Call the mayor, Wichita. Richard, what is your question?
I've lived in the same inner city neighborhood for several years, and this year, this fall and winter, I've encountered far more homeless people and destitute and desperate people than I've encountered in the last several years combined. And I'm very concerned that the city's homeless population seems to be exploding. And at the same time, the city's kicking them out of Nasker Park, telling them they can't beg on the streets and so on. And I'm really concerned about what the city's doing here, and whether the city's doing anything to reverse this trend. And if so, are they doing it with local money, seeing as how this city has always voted to oppose federal funding by voting for congressmen who don't fund things.
Well, I'm not sure that's an accurate statement, Richard. In fact, we continually pour federal funds into some homeless initiatives. In fact, our homeless outreach team received national recognition for the work that they do in Wichita. And every year we do what we call a point in time count. The last point in time count we did for the homeless population, it actually had decreased considerably. And we have some great organizations in this city that provide a wide variety of services that includes meals, shelter, clothing, a lot of different supplies for the homeless. And I think we do a tremendous job in terms of making sure that those that need a hand get a hand, and we will continue to do that. One of the issues with folks that are begging on the street, we often find that money doesn't go in the right place. And so we encourage people to give to organizations that are providing food and shelter and clothing and supplies to the homeless, because we know it's going to get there to them.
And one of those, not opinions, but facts brought forward is from an outside group that has said, hey, we know that the money, a large portion of it, a lion's share, when people are asking for money, is probably not going to go for food or shelter at that point. And Wichita does have those options out there for people. There are some shelters, obviously, but Lord's Diner, I know the city continues to work on some different things too. So hope that answers your question. Now, we do have another question about kind of a combo Joyland / ballpark, 316-491-5787. Let's move to the next question. You are on the air. Ask your question about a blast from the past, Joyland.
Well, I think there'd be a real cool way for the community to, of course, get the Joyland project back underway. I wondered if there could be a municipal bond that could be introduced down the way to help people bring back the Joyland effort in all its glory.
Well, I can tell you that the property's been sold to a developer. I haven't heard what they intend to do with the property yet, but a couple of things in terms of the old Joyland rides. So the carousel is being refurbished, and it's going to exist again in Botanica, and it's absolutely going to be a fun place to visit and enjoy the old carousel that sat out there at Joyland for many, many years. And I'm looking forward to when we can open that ride up. I hear that it may be this next year. And so look, and another conversation that we've had when we talk about the ballpark, the development, the river corridor, there's been some conversation about, can we put a Ferris wheel down there on the river? So we're looking at some opportunities like that.
I think I've mentioned this before. I'm a huge fan of that. I love that idea.
I love it too.
It's part of that, as they call it in London, if you ride the tube in London, it's a destination. They've made that a destination where people can go. People take their selfies and go walk along the river and enjoy, snack and enjoy it all. We have the phone lines open, 316-491-5787. That's the number. You can go to kpts.org. Of course, if you're watching on Facebook, call in with or type in your question, or tap it in if you're on your phone. That's okay. We have another question here. This is from Gary Steele, by the way. This came in earlier in the week, and Gary wants to know, look, talking about bike paths. We do have bike paths in Wichita. We've got the striping out for it, and we've laid it out. I know as a city, I say we, but the city's laid it out so that the bike paths kind of play well with traffic. Gary's question is, look, why all the expenditures on bike paths when they pay no road tax and half don't use them? Well, a legitimate question, I think, in terms of not paying taxes with bicyclists. Not cars, you don't pay a tax into that. I guess that's a legit question. I had never thought of that before.
And so what we also know from many of the studies that we have and from conversing with the general population, number one activity that people like to do for enjoyment is have a safe place to walk and bike. And so we want to make sure that they have those kinds of quality life amenities available to them. We want them to have that safe place to walk and bike. And so we have invested in more bike paths and walking trails around the city to incorporate those kinds of quality life amenities. I know it's not for everyone, but when we talk about quality of life, I often say we have to paint it with a broad brush, because people have a vast array of interest, and we want to try and accommodate all of them.
Well, and too, when they built the new ballpark in Oklahoma City, one of our neighbors to the south, when they went up for a bond issue to ask the public, hey, will you vote for this? They included 7 different things there in Oklahoma City.
Right.
They painted a very broad brush, and taxpayers, you know, the voters, they went for it because they decided some of them like baseball, some of them like other things, and they included quite a few things in there.
They did.
So I have another question for you. 316-491-5787 is the number to call, but I have another question for you. This one
Okay.
came in on Facebook earlier, and I will get it out. Thousands, I don't know, thousands, but Jeff asks, when thousands of people don't want Century 2 to be torn down, but you do it anyway, how will you pretend it's in our best interest? Now, Jeff, you bring up an interesting question, even though you've worded it that way. And maybe thousands of,
Right.
I missed a zero, it's tens of thousands.
Tens of thousands.
But there
So-
are people that want Century 2 to stay. So what are your thoughts?
So I have gone on the record as saying that I think we can save Century 2.
Yes.
I think the problem with Century 2 oftentimes is trying to mix conventions and performing arts in the same building, and the round building was never designed very well for conventions. So I think step 1 is to try and get conventions out of that round building, and then step 2 is to look at what kind of magnificent renovation we can do to have a first-class performing arts center, and I believe we can save Century 2, and so to allude that we want to tear it down, we're far from that decision. In fact, both myself and the city manager have gone on record of saying we think we should save Century 2 and let's look at what we can do. And we believe it may ultimately end up being cheaper to remodel it.
Cheaper, perhaps.
Right.
One of my first conversations with the city manager when he first got here, I asked him, what are your thoughts about Century 2 in the Skyline? He said, well, Century 2 is part of the Skyline. So
Absolutely.
I guess if you ever change that, you'd have to change everybody's Skyline pictures. It would all have
Change
to
all the postcards.
All the postcards. I like the sound of that. All right, 316-491-5787 is the number. KPTS.org. You can find us on Facebook. If you're watching, find us on Facebook and type in your question or tap it in if you're going to be using your opposable thumbs. Another question, and that is in regards to when we have businesses like Spirit Aerosystems come in, and they do so much for the community, obviously. Cargill's done so much for the community. We do some tax abatements for them from time to time. Wherein lies the difference for the city to make a decision, yes, tax abatement or no tax abatement? That question was posed to me earlier this week. Where does the council decide that, or how do you come down on that?
So we're a unique community in terms of how we evaluate those opportunities, because we're one of the few communities in the United States that requires a 1.3 to 1 return on investment. So the first thing that we do is add up all of the investment they're making, the jobs that they're going to bring in, and then we have an independent group that comes in and audits those and calculates what that return on investment will be. And then that's how we base our decision. And if it doesn't meet our standard criteria, then we don't do the deal.
And there is, I should point out again, but there is an outside group that will actually do an
that
audit.
actually does the audit and evaluates the actual return on investment, so that we're not trying to, work the numbers ourselves.
Okay.
It's truly independent, third-party outside group that's evaluating those.
Very good. 316-491-5787 is the number. Let's move on to our next question. We have somebody who wants to ask about, are you, James? And he has a question about bus service. James, are you there?
Okay.
Yes.
Hey, James.
My question about the bus service is we've got the right there at the Interest Arena. Right across the street, we've got the bus system.
Right.
And to me, wouldn't it make sense to utilize that bus service, and it would cut down on the parking around Interest Arena if we were to extend out the hours a little bit during certain events, maybe charge a special price to pick you up at certain locations within the city. I think it would cut down on drunk people being on the road. It would cut down on traffic congestion. Right. It would cut down on a great many things.
Sure.
Interesting question.
So I don't disagree with that philosophy at all. In fact, that's why we have extended the queue lines hours and encouraging people to park in different areas of the city and even downtown. The queue line just was expanded a couple of months ago, and it now runs from Seneca to Oliver, and it runs about every 5 to 8 minutes, and you can find a bus, and it's totally free to ride. You don't even have to dig in your pocket for change. You can just get on the queue line, and it empties out just a block from the arena, and so it's pretty convenient for people to find a place on that route that's an easy place to park, or in many cases they can commute with friends down to a convenient place to hop on the queue line. And the queue line runs until 11 p.m. at night. It runs till 1 a.m. on Friday and Saturday night, and trying to make it more convenient. But we need to expand our transit system, and we're figuring out ways to do that and finding resources to eventually expand our entire transit system.
And if you've never been on the queue line, you got to try it. It's cool.
Absolutely.
It's a bus,
a trolley.
Likes to call it a trolley. Okay, it looks like a trolley.
It looks like a
but
trolley.
Technically, it's a bus.
It is.
It's fun though, and it is pretty easy. And
And it's free.
I've taken it several times, and I don't think I've waited 10 minutes. So
Right.
I can vouch for that. What, 5 to 8 minutes on
5
the
to
run?
8
that
minutes.
It does go around. I like it that it's extended on past midnight on them.
Right.
That's a great idea. All right, 316-491-5787. That's your number to call the mayor. We've still got, about 18 minutes. We have plenty of time for calls.
Plenty of time.
kpts.org, and you can get on Facebook again with your... we have a question here, and I don't know the answer to this. This one came into us. I don't know the answer. I know part of the answer, but I'm going to test your knowledge
All
here.
right.
This question says, do you know of any places right now that help with bills and rent besides the Salvation Army? Now, I know it's that time of year. People have a lot of bills, and they're trying to figure out a way, hey, how do I get Christmas for my kids because I'm struggling anyway? How do I get... I have some thoughts on this, but let's test your knowledge. Who else has something else available out there?
So I will tell you, the city of Wichita actually has a couple of programs that we offer for folks, during the winter months, so that their heat doesn't get shut off. Or
I did not know that.
And so
This is a first for me.
You can call if you meet certain income guidelines, and we'll provide some assistance for that. But also our housing department actually has rent assistant and vouchers that you can apply for and get. And so the city of Wichita has some of those programs, but we have a unbelievably giving, caring community that provides a lot of that support too. And I'll bet you if you call down and talk to one of our neighborhood assistants, they can give you an entire list of resources available.
Hope that answers your question. I know the holidays can be tough for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Especially if you're trying to find money for Christmas gifts. It can be tough. 316-491-5787 is the number to call, kpts.org or Facebook as well. We have a question about the Ark River, and I almost said Arkansas River. Ooh. Let's not go there. Wow, no, it's the Arkansas River. But
Arkansas.
Jack, you have a question. You are on the air. Go ahead.
Yes, I was wondering about all this river development that they're talking about. If in the future, if they have to rebuild a Lincoln Street Dam, wouldn't they want to expand that, move the dam down to Harry Street and expand the river corridor for more boating, and especially with the Wichita State University's rowing team taking residence down there and stuff? I just think it'd be a wonderful opportunity to increase the whole river usage if they would.
And if you don't know the area that well, Harry versus Lincoln, it's how far?
Well, we already put in a new dam,
and so, it's a wonderful structure. Yes.
Yeah. So it's an outstanding new structure that has a boat and fish passage that has been incorporated in the design of the new dam.
Fish down there,
So if you want to kayak, there is a way for you to get around the dam now with the new design, and so the new dam is working as it was intended to do, and it is a brand new dam that we built, and it's working really well. And so I don't see us anytime in the near future doing anything different to that infrastructure. It was about a $10 million build out.
And like I said, I've been down there, and it's a really nice. So sorry about that. Yeah, you just built one, so a little late on that. Okay, we have another question now. 316-491-5787 is the number that you can call. But let's get to this one first. We have some more people writing these in. Okay, what can be done about flooding in Wichita? Now, I know that we have the Wichita Floodway, the Valley Center Floodway, whatever you're going to call it. Oh, that's probably getting a new name, isn't it?
It is getting a new name. In fact, we just received word that it passed the Senate, and it's headed to the president's desk to be
President being Donald Trump?
Donald Trump.
Now, okay, let's explain a little bit there. Why does President have to sign off on this? That's not maybe Wichita property, is it?
So it's not. It's the Corps of Engineers that own it. So it's technically the federal government that has control of that floodway, and so they're going to rename it the Mitch Mitchell Floodway in honor of what we like to affectionately call Big Ditch Mitch.
Yes.
And he
Designer.
obviously was instrumental in the build out, and that has saved thousands and thousands of homes over the years. And we continue to put more money into flood mitigation, and I'm pretty proud of what I was able to do as a council member on the west side, and put in about a half a dozen of projects that help mitigate flooding. And there's more to do. Stormwater is always an issue when you live in an area that's relatively flat and you get a heavy rain. Water doesn't have a chance to run off as fast as it could and should, and so we continue to try to improve that every year.
I guess I could ask the same question. When we get a real heavy rain at work, it gets right up there. So
What people don't...
It's localized.
So what people don't realize also are, in really heavy rains, streets are designed to collect water. So they're designed to basically flood and collect water so that the property doesn't flood. So you want the water to flow to the street and then flow to the storm sewers. So if your storm sewers obviously can continue to be upgraded, you can mitigate some of that. But streets are designed to collect water and get it away from the property.
And it appears to be doing that because, well, it does. I can vouch for it. I know many people can. Okay, next question coming in. Why does the city change seniors full price for bus fares? New York, DC, charge half price. So is there a senior discount in there somewhere? And do you qualify? Are you old? Oh, no, I'm not. You're not
probably old enough to qualify for a senior discount. So we're reevaluating all of our transit fares and different transit options. We're looking at new technology and how we can introduce that to the transit system. And Mike Tan is relatively new to the community. We have a lot of confidence that he's going to bring some great changes to our transit department. And so we know that we have to bolster transit and use new technology and increase opportunities for those that need that public transportation, and we'll continue to work on that.
People rely on it, especially
Absolutely.
seniors. Okay, John, you have a question. You are on Call the Mayor. Go ahead. You have something about golf courses.
It's about both Clapp Golf Course and McDonald Park, and the decision not to sell a McDonald Park Golf Course. I was wondering how the city sees a way forward so that we don't have to revisit this issue every year with the threat of removing one or more of the golf courses from the city system. There are a total of 30 golf courses in the region here, 5 of them public in Wichita and 15 public golf courses regionally, as well as 10 private courses. It seems to me that we've got a problem with participation in the public courses, and I wonder how the city is going to market that. Thank you very much.
Well, great question. I wish I had the magic answer, but the reality is we do have a lot of golf courses in our community, and it's a very competitive market, and we've got to figure out new ways to introduce golf to a new generation, and I think First Tee will be able to do that, but that's a generational thing and it'll take time, and we've got to figure out some innovative ways to get people excited about coming back to the golf courses. So I think we can do some unique things. We're looking at a lot of different things potentially for some of these courses. Could we put lights up on 9 holes of a course and encourage people to use the course in extended hours and certain times of the year, and find some innovative ways. We added disc golf to some of our courses just to try and bring more users in, and
youth users. That's been
well,
it has been, but will be a push too, I'm told.
Yeah. Unfortunately, communities all over the country are closing golf courses.
Declining numbers of rounds.
No question.
Okay.
So I don't know how we change that trend.
Well, okay. Next question, 316-491-5787. Brad, you are on. You have a question for the mayor.
Oh,
Hello. Yes, sir. Basically, we grew up same age, same neighborhood, and we all went down to the big ditch to go swimming and fishing and, have fun with our families, brothers and sisters. But is any of that legal now? So if I were to jump into an inner tube with my fishing pole at Central in the big ditch, would I get arrested by the time I'd get down to Maple?
That's
Good.
That's
It's
a great
possible.
question. And so, some of those areas are off limits, obviously, because of a wide variety of hazards, and we don't allow motorbikes in the big ditch, and the Corps of Engineers are the ones that sets the rules for those kinds of things. We've had people ask for us to put walking trails in the ditch because it's a great place to go and just spend some leisure time. But I think there are some areas, Brad, that you can still go down and enjoy in a few areas, but pretty limited. So I would just check with some officials before you decide that you're going to go hiking down into the big ditch.
All right, good answer, Mayor. 316-491-5787. Liz has a question about development in Wichita. Liz, what is your question for the mayor?
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I have a question about development along the river off of Lincoln Street, clear down to Harry Street, and on the west side of that McLean. You got anything going to be going on there in the next year or two?
So I don't know that I've heard of any developer that's seeking to do anything along that stretch of the river. I would like for us to take some of those neighborhoods that are close and near to downtown and see if we can't find some programs that will help us rehabilitate some of those houses in there, and going back to that affordable housing and some of the things that we need to do. And that would be a great neighborhood to start, really just on the east side of the river over there near downtown between Kellogg and Lincoln, I think, is a prime area for rehabilitation and maybe build some starter homes. But it's a nice stretch of the city, and we would like to see people continue to utilize it, but I don't see anything in terms of development happening anytime soon.
Okay, well, we do continue to get questions in, 316-491-5787. That's the number where you can call in. We did get another question in, and this has to do with Meridian. The question is, would you consider widening Meridian from Kellogg to McLean? It's very congested. Your thoughts on that, Mr. Mayor?
So we really just finished some improvements on Meridian from Kellogg to almost Pawnee Street recently, and so there'll be some more infrastructure improvements that we know that we have to make depending on traffic patterns. We may need to widen Sycamore as you get off the highway as access to the new ballpark, and so we'll look at all of those improvements that need to be made. Certainly that stretch there from Kellogg to Maple is a stretch of Meridian that is starting to get pretty tired, and maybe something that we have to address in the very near future.
Okay, we do have the lines still open, and you can call. We got about 6 minutes left, so call now, 316-491-5787. That is the number to call. You can get a question to us on Facebook. I'm sure we've got a couple more of those coming in. And when it comes to the baseball stadium, you say widening streets. Who will make the decision on that ultimately? Will that go in front of the council, or will that be the planning department that looks at that and then makes a recommendation? So how does that process work?
So it really starts with the council member that's over that neighborhood, and they have a latitude to adjust their capital improvement. We call it the CIP, yes. And they shuffle projects around based on how much money is available to us, and then it does go through our engineering department, and eventually they look at the design and put a cost figure to it. But all of that has to be ratified by the city council as a whole, and so we all vote on those improvements as a council, but it's really up to the council member to look at their area that they govern and figure out what kind of infrastructure is highest priority.
Another Facebook question, we just got this one in. You can call 316-491-5787, but here it is. Why is there no mow zone around Stackman Drive? I have no idea, or had no idea, that there was a no mow zone. Or Yeah, Stackman Drive, your thoughts?
So we're actually implementing new strategies near the river areas, and some of those where it actually filters different things from getting into the river. And so we know that if we grow the right kind of grasses and keep them at a certain height, that actually can improve the quality of the water in the river. And so we kind of use that as nature's filter oftentimes.
I know at some reservoirs they're doing that too along the drain inside where they leave grasses and different types of vegetation to literally filter and to keep it from kind of getting silt in there and kind of filling it up again.
Absolutely.
All right, we still have questions. If you want to call, we got just under 4 minutes now. 316, I had a question for the mayor about Christmas, but we'll get to that in a second. 316-491-5787 and kpts.org. You can get to us on Facebook as well. Well, I guess I'll go ahead and ask my Christmas question. Over the holidays, by the way, happy holidays to all of you. I do a lot of Christmas traditions myself. You got big plans for the holidays here?
So we do. Actually, we're hosting Christmas for our family
Very
this year.
cool.
And so
That's and a lot of work, I guess.
It is a lot of work. my wife's up to that task, and she does a lot of the heavy lifting, and so I certainly appreciate her. But it's, we love the holidays and the opportunity for families to gather and enjoy the season, and so we'll be enjoying it ourselves as we gather around and celebrate with our family.
Well, I will be doing much the same. We do have another caller. I'll go ahead and get your question since we have a little time left. Dave, you have a question for the mayor about lighting. What is your question?
I do, and thank you for taking my call. I built my house out here on the west side on Maple and Ridge when Ridge was the west side of Wichita almost 40 years ago. So I've seen a lot of development on both the east and the west. And I've noticed the east side development always gets the new style black lamppost, and the west side always gets the old style gray lamppost. Any particular reason?
It kind of depends on which neighborhood you're traveling through. So I'm a west sider. I have lived on the west side my entire life and still live on the west side. And some of those neighborhoods that have put in some unique lighting situations are doing it through their homeowners associations, and so they're footing the bill for some of that unique lighting, upgraded lighting. But if you have an issue with lighting, and I would encourage you to contact your council member, because we often have some dark spots in the city that we need to reevaluate, and we'll put in additional lighting where it's needed and requested, and encourage those to get a hold of us if they see a need.
And again, that's one of the things where council members are pretty plugged in. I know they get out in the community, talk to people. We do have another question that we can get to. Got about a minute and a half left, but short answer on this one. What role does the Historic Preservation Board play in development decisions? I know that came up recently in kind of the Old Town area.
So certainly there was some discussion because of the Meads Corner issue.
Yes.
And Historic Preservation Board and how they get to hear those arguments and vote on those. And so they do have the ability to vote on and advise the council on those issues. Just want to remind people that Meads Corner was not a historic building. It just simply was incorporated into a group of historic buildings in an area, and the building itself was never on the historic registry. And so it's often just tough decisions that we have to work our way through.
And again, if it wasn't part of a plan that was historic area, that question wouldn't have come up anyway.
Sure.
But it did. Well, I guess we got about 37 seconds left in the show. So I will tell you that we appreciate you tuning in to Call the Mayor of Wichita. I know Jeff's happy to take your questions, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for being here so much. And I will say happy holidays to you.
Craig, thank you. I appreciate what you've done all this year, and wish you the best during the holiday season. And heartfelt thank you to everything you do to help our city be a better city.
I am very big on Wichita. I make no bones about that. And Mr. Mayor, gotta love this guy. Well, we'll see you after the new year. Thank you for being here. Call the Mayor of Wichita. Until next time, have a good one.